Hi there, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Delivered Podcast. I'm your host, Athena Estelle, and I'm so glad that you've chosen to join us today. Today's guest is another local girl that I'm so excited to welcome. Her name is AnneMarie, and in the smallest of smallest worlds, she was my friend Kayla, who is a doula. She was one of Kayla's clients. Kayla helped her bring her baby boy into the world. And then she was also a client over at the motherhood space. And we spoke to Dr. Jill a few episodes.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for your time. So give the listeners a little background as much as you.
Yeah, so my son is 16 months old right now. But prior to my son, actually a few months before finding out I was pregnant, I actually had a miscarriage. And so during that miscarriage season is when I reached out to Kayla for doula support because I was like, yeah, I'm really excited about my journey to motherhood, but I just went through really of walking through a miscarriage. And I had actually reached out to her prior to even becoming pregnant, which is a cool thing. She said it's unique. Most people talk to her once they're pregnant. And so I had reached out to her then and tried to get some support from her and also established her as my doula from there. And then a few short months later, I said, guess what? I'm pregnant. Oh. So then she was officially my doula for my pregnancy. And besides sleeping, always sleeping. But besides that, I had a really great pregnancy and had her with me all the way through that, which was amazing. And just all of my appointments, I could just text her. I highly recommend it just for the support aspect of it. And then I also wanted to go natural, reason why I had gotten a doula. I really wanted to have a non-birth. And so then come Mother's Day of 2024, my daughter broke that morning, which I was like so excited. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a Mother's Day baby. This is so amazing. And I wasn't expecting to go to have my water break or to be going into labor because it was a little bit early. So my water broke and just got a long road ahead of you. And I'm like, no, I'm doing it to rest. And anyway, that kind of turned into 3 or 4 days until my water broke. And it was 52 hours. Whoa. And pretty crazy ride through that. So I ended up getting an epidural because essentially what happened was I had pre-rupture, which is where your water breaks and you don't go into labor, which I actually 10% of women really have that happen to them. I thought the number was much more. And so my body never went into labor basically meant that I had to be induced because time was ticking. They did out to Full Circle Women's Care in Jacksonville because that's the providers that Kayla works with, and they are really amazing about what you want. And so they let me see if my body would start for a while, for probably 30 hours. And then I was actually in the hospital because I had meconium in my fluid. So I had to go into the hospital and just hang out. And then they started me on Pitocin. I labored on Pitocin for quite a while. And Kayla was like, you're doing really good. You're breathing through your contractions. You got this, girl. And because I was on Pitocin, I had to have the monitor on full time. And what had happened was the monitor came to me and they said, oh, we have to restart Pitocin all over again. To get to this higher level of Pitocin, we have to start that all over. We have to take you off Pitocin for 30 minutes. And at that point, I had been laboring with Pitocin unmedicated for 6 hours. They're like, okay, so we're going to take you off of Pitocin, and then we're going to wait 30 minutes to make sure that your all heart rate stuff is going to put you back on it. And when they took me off Pitocin, my body just completely stopped contracting. So they basically were like, yeah, you need Pitocin to get this baby out. And so at that point, I was just I have to start this all over again. I was just looking at Kayla and I was like, I think I'm going to get the epidural. And for probably about an hour, I sat and talked with Kayla and the nurse. My husband was actually sleeping at that point because we had been there for a day and a half already. And so I'm sitting there talking to Kayla and the nurse about an hour trying to make this decision to get the epidural. And Kayla was like, I think you know what's best for you. So just make the decision what's best for you. And I decided to get that epidural and truly wouldn't have gotten it. It would have turned into a C-section or potentially even an emergency C-section. That's the way that my entire labor was going.
Oh, yeah. Straight up baptism by fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to learn.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. That's exactly how I felt. Our stories are similar. Did you say hours? And I don't know what the drip was, the rate or whatever,
Yeah.
but by the time that 4 hour, because at that point I had just had the Pitocin. I was like, okay, if I have to do that, fine. But I'm going to fight the epidural as long as I can.
Yeah.
And at the end, my back, I was just like, it feels like someone's putting a knife in my spine. And I remember my husband looked at me and he was like, I think it's time. And I was just like, don't even say that to me. And then she was like, is this how you want to remember? You heard me, how you want to remember your birth, because you don't want to look back and I hated it. Like, you're bringing it to the world. It has to be one of the biggest blessings of being a woman. So it's like, when I was like, no, I don't want to hate this. And I want to be as present as possible.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely relate to you on your story as well. And I think even going into it, we would have meetings with Kayla and she knew I wanted to go and straight up tell her in our meetings prior to the delivery room, and you might have done the same thing. If I ask for one, just tell me no. That's what I planned. And so when I was asking for one, I'm like, you're going to know. That's what we have planned. And looking back, thank God I did.
I know they induced me the night before my daughter was born with the Cervidil. I woke up, I was not dilated or anything. And then we did 4 to 5 hours, nothing. I think I got to 1 centimeter. And then they were like, your body's just relaxing. And the one nurse said the epidural might help. And I was like, because I have friends where it did the opposite. It slowed everything down. So I was just like, but I did it. And I went from 1 to 4, I think within about an hour. And then I went from 4 to 10 with minutes. It was no, I couldn't. And I was like, thank you, God, that it wasn't it, because it's hard. And I know that you're contracting, you're uncomfortable, but I felt at least on the Pitocin, I could push the IV.
And I say, like, with my experience with the provider that I had there, they do a lot of doula work and non-medicated births. So they're very familiar with that. So Kayla was saying, we're going to get the epidural that you're going to be able to do things still. And so I was like all over the place, even with my epidural.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they call it like that, but they made me stay in the bed for liability reasons. But they had me in the weirdest position. That's cool that we have a similar experience with that. I do think it is more common than people talk about. So when I looked up that statistic about only 10% of people's water break, because you think about movies and how it happens in movies, right? Your water breaks and then you go into labor, but that's actually not very common.
No. And for me, I remember I was sad. I was like, what do you mean? It's not going to break out. Its doctor was like, oh no, honey. I was like, but
that's
why?
Good. You had a healthy sac.
I sure did. This kid didn't want to come out. I was 41 and a day. No, it's time. And I kept asking them, are you sure I can't go to 42 weeks? Are you sure I can't go? And they were like, ow. Rationalize when you're like super wild. Crazy. I know. So tell me on the doula side of things. So pre-labor and labor on the doula side of
that's such a good thing. Someone else as a guide or I don't know. I feel like what it was take pressure off my husband, and also off of me. And with making that decision with the epidural, it was like I was leaning on heavily because I know that she's in a very skilled field that she's in, and she does. I knew that, and so it just gave me peace of mind to just say, "Hey, you know a lot. You've seen birth this year. What do you think?" Just leaning on that. And to have another person in there to be an advocate for you and knows what you want. There was a point where I had on my birth plan that I did not want students. And I was just trying to limit how many people were in the room and stuff like that. And to push, the midwife was like, hey, we have some students and love to watch this, whatever. And she was me. And I'm just like, yeah, sure, that'd be great. And Kayla's on your birth. Are you sure you want that? And I was like, Actually, I do know why, but I'm down for that. I think because at that point I was like, everybody didn't let's launch this. But so one of the things that she was like, does it matter to you if, if they're male or female? Does that matter to you? What are you comfortable with? And she was like, the student is a male and one is a female. And I was like, yeah, I probably prefer a woman because all the rest of my providers were women. And so anyway, just to have the person to kind of keep me steady and I'm not in my right mind. And then my husband tends to be a very anxious and high stress, very anxious.
Mm-hmm.
So to have her calming presence, and my husband and I talk about it now because I'll put the epidural if we have another baby. And he's like, do you think that we need Kayla? And I was like, yes, we need Kayla. Even if we're getting an epidural, we're having.
That's a non-negotiable part of the birth plan.
I feel like we could do it now. We know what we're doing. And I'm like, no, we don't.
He says that, and then he'd be in the moment like, why didn't we hire her?
Right?
Like, oh, yeah, we got this. And you're like, but why? Yeah.
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 So then after delivery, what did your plan?
Yeah, so Kayla, I don't believe she's a postpartum. There are postpartum that will support you a lot in postpartum. However, she does with her contract and what she provides, she does do a follow-up where comes a home visit where she comes and sees you and the baby and checks in on you. And then she had lines of communication open. So she was like, you can call anytime, text me any day. I'll reach out to her and just check in or send a picture of our son. And really in that time, it was just, again, nice to somebody who's been there. And then she just came and sat with me and held the baby. She was one of the first people to, obviously she was the person who met because she was in the room.
Yeah.
But really after the fact, even, it's our first baby and not having a lot of people trying to keep sickness away. And so she was like, came over. And a sweet relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Doula work is on that you can't, not anything can feel like the way it does.
Yeah, I think they can relate on just so many levels. Yeah, it's incredible. Definitely very needed. She's very good at her job. Yeah, that's awesome. So you feel in your postpartum signs that...
Yeah, so to give a little background,
Mm-hmm.
I had the time I was about 21, 22, and I'm now 30. And obviously, like, it's not my first rodeo with mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so truly for years, I didn't even know if I would be able to. It was one of my honestly deepest desires and just really some always wanted. Just my story and my testimony of my mental health journey, and then also just what me and my husband have worked through in our marriage. I just truly didn't know if that was in the cards. And when I say that, I mean I was unwilling to bring a child into this world not knowing if I could give them the best of me. Mm-hmm. Which now, obviously, being a mother, I realize I am so inadequate. However, I really was like, I need to work on myself and get myself into a really stable place. And so I did that from the time I was 21 when it first started until the time that we decided to start trying for a baby, which would have been around the time of 28. And so I have that experience in my life. And so going into pregnancy, I really made my providers aware of that, my doctor aware of that, who I receive medication from. I also am in therapy 7 years with different therapists over time who have helped me in various ways. And so I just knew myself going into it. It's very likely I could have an issue. It's very likely I could have an issue in pregnancy, which I not have that much issue in pregnancy mentally. I have something called PMDD. So PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And I figured out that I had that around that age. I probably had it before that and just didn't realize. Essentially what it is, the week before your cycle, some people, it's longer than that, like 10 days before your cycle, of hormone fluctuations and changes, your mood just likely shifts. So I don't want to say you turn into a different person, but really you spiral during that time. And it's basically like PMS on steroids. So maybe like a PMS symptom, but for a longer period of time. And so for all of those, for me, it's about a week to 10 days up to my cycle. And then as soon as my cycle starts, I feel amazing and I feel back to myself again. So really part of my story and my journey is working through PMDD ever since I became aged to be able to have a cycle. However, I really started attacking it around that 21-year-old age. And so one of the things with PMDD, one of the things they say is because when you're pregnant, you're not having cycles anymore, it can really lessen the mental health issues that you're having. And so I found that with the boost of progesterone and all of those things that my were like, I felt really good. So I told my husband, I'll just stay pregnant. Like, this is great. Obviously, you can't, but amazing during pregnancy. But I knew as soon as I deliver, my whole body is going to crash. Just going through my PMDD cycles, I know I'm going to have this upswing and then I gear up and know that I'm going to have a harder week right before my cycle. So I very light once you have your baby, you're going to struggle. And, you know, even in the hospital, my midwives and stuff, think about it with them. You stay 2 days and my midwife came in and I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this. Very likely it's going to happen. And that's not to say I was speaking that over to be there and know that it might come, because for me personally, that helps me like feel it. And so we started thinking about it and just looking for signs. And she explained to me baby blues are normal, that you might have hot flashes in the night and crying spells and all of that. But around 8 weeks, I really started to realize, no, I'm like really depressed. And normally the way that my mental health functions is a lot of anxiety. So that's different for me. I was like, I have this beautiful baby, wanted my entire life. I worked hard to get my mental health in a place that I felt good enough to have this baby. And I felt really ready. And I knew that even when it's here, it's still just terrible, because it's like, this is supposed to be the happiest moment. And it's just, I feel terrible. And so even though I planned a new support, even then, it's a hard thing to essentially say out loud. It's here.
Yeah. Realization and the acceptance of it, it's so tough. So tough.
Yeah.
So would you say that having that PMDD, it almost, obviously it sparked your awareness of the warning signs for PPD. So I feel like that's a very good thing. Unfortunate that you have to have that history, but almost like it prepared you for it. You knew what to look for. But also, I feel like that had to be a little heavier because you already have been through so much and dealing with and preparing your to come and have postpartum depression after that time.
So I think I started realizing it around the 8-week mark, but it wasn't until probably around like 4 or 5 months that I really reached out to her. And a lot of that was me dragging. I knew I needed it, but I was like, oh, maybe I can fight against it. I think a lot of that comes from my background of how to attack my mental health in the past. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I was taking walks every day. I was doing all the things I know I needed to do. But what I realized was this is a little bit different than having mental health issues for a baby, because now there's sleepless nights, much time to do self-care. And so when I reached out to her, it really was just in this moment of, I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to get a little bit fearful that I'm not being honest with myself on that. And so a way of reaching out to her was almost to just say, hey, this is where I am and I need more help. Because obviously I was talking to my husband, I went to my 6-week appointment and all of those things, but me taking that additional step past what I normally do, which is go to take my medicine, all of those things, it was a little bit of a way to say, yeah, this is where I am. And some of the symptoms I was having was that, if I don't know if the listeners would want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
From other perspective, from someone else's, I was having intrusive thoughts, which has happened before in my past, only when my mental health is really not good. And so those intrusive thoughts, like really big red flags for me. because I know myself, and those were my biggest red flags, were those intrusive thoughts. They were even more scary because recognizing what an intrusive thought was, a lot of my intrusive thoughts in the past were maybe like self-harm intrusive thoughts. But then when you have a baby, your brain is like, what if you do this to your baby? Which everything in you is like, no, I would never do that. But the thought is, what if I'm not well enough and I hurt my baby or do, and that's exactly what an intrusive thought is. And so I started doing some research and actually found some podcasts about OCD tendencies, what intrusive thoughts happen with OCD. And then I was realizing that I was being very, as a new mom, very OCD. And I think a lot of new moms feel that way.
Yeah.
Where they're like, everything has to be perfect. Everything, the bottle needs to be sterilized, the passy floor, all of those things. And so those OCD tendencies, intrusive thoughts are go with OCD. And I didn't really know that that's what I was struggling with. But that's really where I started getting freaked out, because I was like, wait a second. They're so uncomfortable. So uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Did you have?
Oh, yeah. And right around that time, it was almost like I just didn't want to function. I didn't eat. I wasn't sleeping. I didn't really care about. I never wore makeup. I never got ready. I stopped painting my nails. It was just like, and similar to my mental health history, I've always had a base anxiety, but it is not abnormal. You can have a beautiful baby and still be completely lost on the inside. It happens all the time. When she said that to me, I was like, yeah, you're describing me right now. So for me, my intrusive thoughts were my family better without me. I used to tell my husband all the time, I want you to go and get another wife. I used to tell him, you guys are so much better without me. She needs to have a fully functioning mom, and he's young. She was 6 months when all of my stuff started to spiral. So I used to tell him all the time, you don't need me. You need like an active mom and all this stuff. And oh my God, it was so terrible. And it's exactly what you said. Uncomfortable is probably the best way to describe them, because they would make me physically sick. And then the scary part is, I don't know if your brain just starts to ruminate on it. And then you're just like stuck in like,
you can't thinking about the bad thought.
Exactly.
My mom says that bad thoughts are like potato chips. If you eat one, you're going to kill. If you have one bad thought. And I was, that's good.
Therapist. I love that analogy from your mom. I think that's a great thing to think about. And it's so true in every aspect of life. Prepartum, pregnancy, postpartum. It's so true. But it's also something I think it's good that you recognize this is too much. This is not my norm. And so you decided to.
Yeah, you too. I was thinking, as you were saying that, I was like, it's really strength to reach out. It's really strength to acknowledge it. And like you said, holding both of those things is so hard, because you're like, I have the most beautiful thing in my hands that I've ever wanted, and I can't stop being sad, and I don't know why, and I can't say these thoughts, and I don't know why. And all of that kind of coming through it on the other side now, it was being in a different place, to realize the beauty in that and just how strong you are, that you can make that. And yeah, it's a crazy ride, but it's so worth it. And I love that there's other people like you. Obviously, I'd never wish this on anybody, but someone who I can relate with and be part of our stories.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then you look back and you're, why didn't I say anything? But I also think, like, I am a firm believer, everything happens for a reason, this all the time. And I'm going to laugh when he hears that. It's that thing of, if you would have told me when I was going through that I would come out on the other side and be off med, be able to function and be back to work and have a podcast, like I would have laughed, like crying tears, and feel like it's exactly what you said. You look, I am strong. I can make it through hard things.
And
it's cool.
I love that so much. And for a second, to your comment about, in kind of the potato chip thing, about having one bad thought, is that kind of, you start ruminating on it, which is from the research I've done, the OCD intrusive thoughts, it's very common that you can't stop thinking about it once you have. And so one of the ways to crush that is to take it captive and be like, okay, that thought is a thought, it's not me, and realizing what it is. So for me, what was helpful in that was saying it out loud, my therapist, and also listening to those podcasts to recognize, wait, I'm not a bad thought, and that's going back, kind of bring mom shame. and mom guilt. And so when you were saying that, and we were talking about just having your baby in love with and then having these feelings, you feel so guilty for having that, just breaking the stigma, which is what you're doing in this podcast, which I absolutely adore. Just breaking the stigma and making people aware and really truly realizing we're actually not bad moms.
Literally, great slogan. We need to do something with that. But no, so true. There's just so much. I feel like part of it is just in society, which is there's just like such a strive for perfection. Of course, we all want to get it right. We all want to do the right thing. We all want to have the healthy baby and all the things. But if you don't fail, to say that postpartum depression is failure, it's not. But just to say, I'll reword it. If you can't struggle, I think that you and I are, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is it.
Yeah.
I love that.
And it's interesting, like you said before, when you look back, it's wow, look at that. But when you're just in the pit, it's hard to see edges. It's hard to see the sun. It's hard to see. But when you're on the side, you look back and you're like, look at how far. And so I would just encourage any of the listeners about it a little bit. Give the listeners, because I story, and I know we talked about it pre-recording, but give the listeners your story.
The motherhood space. And they were so good at communicating with me, which was another thing. They just make everything easy because they know you're already struggling. The last you need is to be on the phone for 5 hours trying to get an appointment. So they made everything the process is so simple. And a day or two, I was already accepted into the program, ready to start. You can start this week. And I'm going to be honest, I was nervous. My primary thing I was nervous about was leaving my baby at home. They do have childcare there. But my husband had a business and he could stay with my husband. And I felt like that was better. And so really my biggest thing was the program is 3 days a week for, I want to say 3 hours a day. And it's also an hour from my house. So it's going to take 5 hours, 3 days a week for me. And I was like, I don't think I can be away from my baby. Like, he's 5 months old. I can't miss a minute with him. And she came here. A lot of people bring the baby. They have childcare, but a lot of people actually bring the babies in the motherhood space room. So she said if there were times that I wanted to bring him, I could. And then also I was like, could I do 2 days a week? And they accommodated me. I don't know if that's necessarily what they always do, but she was like, we're going to work with you. If 2 days is what you need, then we're going to do. And so really, they gave me every excuse not to. They're just like, what do you need? You need childcare. You need a ride. You need work. And for that, I'm just so grateful. And one of the things, me, I don't really have insurance that will cover therapy type of stuff. My husband and I have a business. We have our own types of insurance, and it doesn't cover mental health. I already knew it's not going to cover this. And it's the Christian medical sharing plan. And basically it was like I was without insurance. And so I was like, what's the sum? And they're like, they told me the sum rate. And I was like, I can't afford that. And she was like, no problem. It's paid for. And I would say, what? She's like, no, you don't have to pay anything. Just come. And oh my gosh, gonna cry. I was like, have always paid for therapy. Since the time I was 21, I have spent so much money on therapy, and you're trying to tell me right now, this intensive, specific therapy that is completely covered. Okay. Thank you, God. I have to go do it. And the reason that it was covered was because they have scholarship. They have scholarship money that they have associated with the program, and they've done that specifically for people whose insurance won't cover the program. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they do it all. They think of everything.
I've never even heard of childcare at any type of intensive program like that. No, that's absolutely not a thing. And when I was talking about it on her interview, I want to say, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the motherhood space is 5 or country. That's it. And you're talking about the United States of America. What? Yeah, it's baffling, first of all. And I think that's just more proof that there's so much work to be done in the niche of postpartum depression and anxiety and PMAS and just all of it. There's so much more.
And I think that's what was so boggling to me when Kayla said that I'd have this place an hour away from me and there's 5 in the whole country. How did I get that lucky that would happen for me? And so I think it really sparked my interest because since I've struggled with mental health from the time of 21, I wanted to do something with mental health related things. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Dabbled into becoming a therapist, or maybe I've looked at like podcast work or whatever, just trying to get information out to people and watching the work that you're doing. But watching the work that Dr. Jill Garrett and Dr. Thames are doing at the motherhood space, I am just like blown away. And I told them when I started and I told them when I left, I was like, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of this right now because this is what I need, but I want to be a part of this in the future. And I'm really hoping I have a passion for this as well, that it's going to continue to grow and the resources will continue to grow. And I have friends and family members who live in other states, and I tell them about this because I find out they're struggling, but you don't have that in your area. I do know there's some online resources, which I think Dr. Garrett did talk about. It's not a lot, but there are some. And then obviously listening to podcasts is super helpful just to not feel alone. And also Postpartum International and stuff like that. So I'm grateful that there are some resources, but we need more, way more.
Way more. Yeah, I agree with you. So when you were in the program, what would you say were either specific sessions that you felt like, wow, this hits so close to home?
A lot of it is coming into it. I have some experience with the way therapy works, but there are probably people who've never gone to a therapy session before. So some things I'm hearing in it, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Taking your thoughts captive, or what is an intrusive thought? Just some of those things. But I think the power of the group is the fact that you're all in it together and you're all relating to one another and you realize you're not alone. Because with postpartum, a lot of times people are just stuck in their house. And not to say, I don't want to say like you're just stuck in your house, because obviously you can take your baby places. However, it is work that is a lot of times not seen. And it can feel really lonely, even though you have another person with you all the time. And so I think just having a space, motherhood space, I love that they called it that. For moms who are like, oh yeah, my baby cried all night long and I really was having to do this technique to try to calm myself down, and recognizing that we're all going to be overstimulated. Maybe at times with our mental health, some more than others or whatever. But really, it's not about if you're going to be overstimulated, because you are. It's about how you're going to handle it. And when you realize the only person going through it. So I think that was probably the biggest key thing in it. But to highlight a few other points, Jill Garrett, Dr. Thames, go through there's a part in the program, what she had explained on the podcast I listened to with you is exactly how it goes. So I won't repeat too much of it, but they hit on a lot of this theme as people are coming in and out. And one of the topics they talk about is a PMAD, and that's perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. And so it encompasses the entirety of postpartum. Oftentimes, if we say postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression, we're not encompassing that intrusive thought we had. We're not encompassing postpartum rage. We're not encompassing postpartum loneliness. There's so many aspects, or guilt, or the loss of yourself. There's so many things that can really unravel in postpartum. And when they go over perinatal mood and anxiety disorder and just go into the details of how your brain actually changes once you have a baby, it's honestly crazy. You know, everything in us are in our baby and nurture them and care for them specifically to do that. And so they just go over and talk about being postpartum. And it's just a biological, sociological, and mental things that happen to us after we give birth to a baby and seeing a baby. And just hearing that topic made me realize I'm okay. This is just part of what, obviously, it's super uncomfortable and we should get the help that we need. But also, I was made to, everything in me, these OCD tendencies and behaviors that I'm having are because I genuinely, everything in me wants to take child to the best of my ability. And so you realize when you're thinking, oh, I must be, what if I'm a bad mom? Or like all of these intrusive thoughts, that you're actually a good mom because you really care and you really are putting much effort in, and your body instinctually is telling you to care for this human. It's really a becoming. It's like going through that is a becoming. And yeah, so I think that's pretty much some of my favorite things that I took away from it. They also just do other things. They always have snacks. They always have water for you. They have a massage chair. They do walks every day. There's just so many little things they try to touch. Hey, let's take care of you today. And you're forced to take care of yourself. So what you were talking about before, where you had just stopped wanting to do those things naturally.
Yeah. I think that was definitely something that just being a mom and being postpartum taught me, was that I never really understood what self-care was before. In therapy, I've heard that term before, and I was just like, okay, sure. But then I feel like once you're a mom and you actually understand this is what true self-care looks like, it's putting yourself in a good place, not only mentally, but emotionally, logically, and just basic needs. If your basic needs, like being hungry and not drinking water all day, of course,
in the motherhood space, it's, okay, everybody, we're going to get up and go for a walk. Obviously, everything's optional. They're like, we're going to get up and go for a walk. Take your water bottle yourself and see if you can drink half of it. It's like mothering the mother. I think it's great for any mom, but I think first-time moms is an amazing resource.
After completing that program, what did that look like for you at home?
I will say, leaving the program, I was like, wait, no. I want to stay here. Like, really, it wasn't like I want to stay here. It was like, really, I want to bring all of you into my home and just do life with you because I love the community of it. And so I think part of what I realized was I'm trying to do this by myself. And I need other people who are in the same season as me, going through the same things as me. I actually have a lot of support. I have family close by. I have really good friends, a great husband support. And not everybody in motherhood space has that. Actually, a lot of people don't have those things and they need more of that. But I also realized that I need that community of moms. And while I'm still in the program, I started a group motherhood space chat, but it's like through GroupMe. And just, we've been adding people in it ever since, and it's just grown. And it's really one of those things where if you're sitting there nursing your baby at 2 a.m. and you just are having a rough day, you can just pop on there and say, hey ladies, anybody else? Just having the relatability. And yeah, they're not in your house with you, but at least they're a text away and they get it. And like, hey, tomorrow do you think we could get together? And a lot of times we'll meet up or something. I think that was a huge program. I met a really good friend. She actually started the first day I did. And me and her have been hanging out a lot and just experiencing life together, like going to son's first birthday and just bonding through mental health struggles and being postpartum. And like one of those bonds, like with Kayla, are hard, and you meet someone in that season, you just bond in a way that's not, and it's been really good. But yeah, I definitely would say that I've implemented a lot of the things that my space has taught. And I haven't, when you start the program, you fill out like a intake, and it talks about, you do a standardized test of where you're at mentally. And then when you leave, you do a test. And my test scores were significantly higher when I was leaving, and I felt significantly leaving. And so Dr. Garrett was like, hey, if you need us, we're here. So it's like having them in your back pocket. If you're like, and you can do it, I think you can do it all the way up to 2 postpartum, and then obviously with future baby when you're pregnant. So if people need it when they're pregnant. And then I have her email, and there's other support things that they're doing.
I think that just all the work that she's done so far has been so great to see. I feel excited for the future and what's she going to do next. It's a great resource. I'm really glad that you got to do it. And I'm so thankful that you were willing to come on and just share your story. I just think encouraging to know that there's moms out there just like you that you've overcome such.
Also, your podcast, when I found it, I think Kayla had sent it to me. And I was like, wait a second, this exists. It was the same thing with the motherhood space because it hit on everything I was looking for as far as personal story and like your faith and just a bunch of different things that I feel like was super impactful and important to me. And I don't know, I just love what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so welcome. Okay, I have to ask you my favorite question last, though. So before we wrap up, this is my favorite thing. I finish every episode like this. So now you choose which section you'd like to choose, but just if you look at your postpartum directly after birth or since then, if you had to give one
One
and
word.
why,
Naturally, what comes to my mind is empowered.
or like a
And I truly
phrase.
think that what we were talking about earlier, it just shows you the strength that you carry as a woman
Mm,
and that you can get through mental health struggles even while caring for a whole human being that is solely reliant on you. That's power. And you should feel empowered for that. And I don't think that going through mental health struggles should be a thing where, oh, like,
hmm
I think we feel like we're terrible because we're going through it. But if you really think about it, we're actually going through so much and having to overcome so much. And it truly is, we are so strong for being able to raise a child and go through mental health issues all at the same time and come through side with just more great kindness, empowerment, and just wanting to encourage other women. I feel like it's such a beautiful thing. And I just love motherhood and I love talking about it and I love mental health advocacy. And so I would definitely just say empowered and kind of an overcomer too,
Yeah.
right? Overcomer. So thank
Yeah. Well, it's official. You nailed your first podcast interview. Congratulations. You did great. Yeah, thank you again for your time and for being open. And I can tell just from hearing the way you talk and obviously on video, your face. So obviously, I can
thank
just
you.
tell it comes across in the speakers. And I'm excited to see whatever you're going to do next. Yeah, thanks again for being here.
Yeah,
So
thank
I'll link,
you.
has any questions if they'd like to reach out.